Today is the fourth day of spring, so I thought I would chat about uh, spring um, and what you like about spring and all the uh, things associated with spring. Those the intro uh, IPCC report, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the sixth report that came out, and I will be talking about the a case in the um, what's it called um, impact environmental impact assessment act that's going to the Supreme Court of Canada. So yeah, what I like about spring is that it brings renewal. A lot of robins are out. Um, it's a lot warmer than in past in recent season being winter. I'm in the territory of the Mississauga and Anishinaabe. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know the seasonal teachings of um, indigenous nations. Um, I don't know that many. Um, I do know that strawberries are significant. Uh, Strawberries represent the halt. I don't know when they'll. Is that a spring? Um, oh, May to October. So that's more of a. Um, I think that might fall into late spring. Um, but yeah, that's something that I should work on, like learning about um, the cultural practices um, of indigenous people and learning how to respect them. Um, um, yeah, so there's right now I don't have any views at the moment, but I want to try to see if I can change the title for Stay of Spring. Full state of spring. If I can do that, then I don't need to have like a long title. Yes. Okay. Full state of spring. Um, yeah, I'm excited to go out into my backyard and flip the compost. I have a backyard compost. Uh, right now, the city of Peterborough doesn't have a organic collection, but it will in October. And so I'm excited about that. I will be moving to Kingston before then, but yeah, I like. Yeah, I said robins. Robins are a good sign of spring. Dandelions. Um, yeah, so I'll look at what's. Usually, I message one of my friend. I have a friend that I message every equinox and birthday. So it's an excuse to like send a message like how are you doing? Um, And I know a lot of different cultures celebrate the changing of seasons. It make the change of seasons, I find, makes you more appreciative of the seasonal changes, like the winter time and let's see. Well, I can look up uh, spring equinox. Well, this isn't from this territory, but it's Treaty Two, but it's still Anishinaabe um, territory. I know that the teachings are very specific to the region that you're in, or the specific nation, specific um, land. Um, so let's see. I have it. I can pull it up. This will- Yeah. So it's a spring equinox, time for change, growth, and renewal. Published on March 20th. Oh, this is from last year. Um, so it's significant to the Anishinaabe calendar. Um, and it marks warmer weather and longer days, which is true for Europeans as well, and the scientific community. I know that there's like a scientific day. I think it's the same. I think it's the scientific day is today, and then there's a different meteorological spring. Um, and then they're recognized by many First Nations for the purposes of cultural activities, feasts, gatherings, and ceremony. Um, and they marked migration periods um, for animal hunting, or what animals might be available. Um, and then the Anishinaabe New Year takes place on the March full moon, which is March 18th. I didn't know that, but March 18th. Um, and I guess it changes each year. March full moon. So yeah, that's something to be mindful of, um, and knowing that a lot of indigenous people might be busy on March 18th um, for cultural celebrations is also important. It is known as the Zizabwad Gizas Sugar Moon. Um, and it's related to teaching about maple sap, um, which heals, balances blood, and heals people. Oh, and I also got a highlighter, so I can highlight articles next time I look at them. Oh, I should see if there's any chat. Oh, maybe I'm not. Am I in the chat? Oh, yes. I'm watching myself, so I can see the chat. Um, and yeah, we both. Um, yeah, and it's also important not to culturally appropriate spring equinox. Um, I'm of European heritage, European or ancestry, European ancestry. Oh, so this is like celebrations around the world. 11 interesting spring and March equinox. Um, oh, yeah, so yeah, chocolate. It's a religious holiday. Um, related to um, the resurrection of Jesus, which I believe more this, but no, I don't want assumptions. So this is in Mexico at Chichen Itza on the Yucatan Peninsula. Sunlight moves over the uh, Kukulkan Pyramid, giving the appearance of a snake on stone. The Stonehenge, um, it's a famous site, um, draws crowds for the solstice in June and December. Oh, I don't know how accurate this. So probably like a busy site, Stonehenge. Uh, Truck, Trucker, Truckee Woodhenge in Illinois. Oath mounds by Native American civilizations. I wish that there would be specific, um, largest, and most complex archaeological sites north of those in Mexico and southwestern U.S. Um, Circle series of temple circles are believed to be soul candle, and then there's some in Malta. Um, yeah, I guess maple. When does maple syrup come out? Maple syrup season. I think it might be like ending maple syrup. Oh, late winter through early spring. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of indigenous teachings about maple syrup. Maple sap, um, and there's a lot of um, maple syrup that's made in the late winter and early spring. That's why you have like pancake festivals in and around now. Um, maple syrup. Oh, and I think maple syrup was in the news because of like climate change. Um, and then I'll type in the news. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, if you like pancakes, um, climate change is impacting your pancakes, or whatever else you use maple syrup. Um, so, this article is saying Ontario maple syrup producers hit by climate change, some old carbon restrictions, and it's by the Canadian Press. Unpredictable winter temperatures. There's definitely a range in which maple syrup has to be produced. Uh, highly maple syrup is sensitive to temperatures, um, and saying that so climate change will impact the future. Prolonged mild conditions had maple syrup producers in southern Ontario chopping trees for sap in early February, which is significantly earlier when tapping season has historically been in early to mid March. A cold spell last week then forced a pause on the early start to operations. So yeah, this is very sensitive to temperature extremes. The executive director of the Ontario Maple Syrup Producers Association said that there's evidence that spring-like weather is starting earlier each year, creating uncertainty in the delicate freeze-thaw cycles that producers rely on. Um, oh, no thanks. I don't want that pop up. Um, the swings in weather means producers have to rush to tap trees when temperatures shift unexpectedly with little time to prepare for operations. There's frequent windstorms that uproot maple trees, as well as invasive pests that can spread with rising temperatures. Like tent caterpillars in 2018 left some producers with 30% less syrup than the year before. The Maple Syrup Producers Association. Oh, is anyone? Um, expects some growth within the next 10 years, with millions of taps being added to in Ontario and Quebec. And demand shows no sign of slowing. So that contributes to the rising cost of food um, as well. Um, Keeping up with global demand will require topping 120 million more trees by 2080. Um, and it will add carbon levels in the atmosphere due to the wood and other fossil fuels burned to boil the sap collected from maple trees down to syrup. So those increase risk of climate change, and trees need maple um, syrup as well. So if more trees are harvested for maple syrup, it'll be hauled on the remaining trees. There's a effort to switch to carbon neutral practices. Um, Evaporators can cut down emissions significantly. Well-maintained maple trees also store more carbon via natural sequestration. Oh, so it says that it's, with more trees tapped, um, it'll be less likely for the trees to be cut down. It said that there's no false choice between being green and being profitable. Um, I know that those like greenwashing, so I want to be wary of that statement. And then those eco capitalism, which is a thing. Um, oh, where is this? Okay. Oh, and that end of the article. Yeah, so see how many people watching. Oh, there's one person watching. So thank you. It might be myself. Um, but yeah, I'm going to take a break to go to the washroom, and I'll be back. So yeah, I am back. Can you hear me? Um, okay, so there was a report released. Um, oh. Hopefully that. Oh, I don't see that on my screen. Is a bit. There's a bit of a delay. Um. So, United Nations scientists in the International Panel on Climate Change released a report. Scientists deliver final warning on. Oh, yeah. Released a report, the sixth report. It's called a synthesis report. And this is an article from um, the Guardian about that report. And it's called Scientists Deliver Final Warning on Climate Crisis. Act now or it's too late. And yeah, the IPCC, which is the International Governmental Panel on Climate Change. Oh, I have a phone call, so I'll have to pause. So yeah, it was uh, a scam call. I should start adding music or something for you to listen to while there's a break. But anyways, yeah. So it's the final part of the sixth assessment report. It took 8 years to compile and runs into thousands of pages, and it has one message: act now or it'll be too late. Um, the UN Secretary General Antonio. Uh, I'm just going to see if I can copy and paste into a name pronounce. Hopefully this works at pronouncing names. Oh, it's just loading. Pop-ups.
Guterres.
Guterres. So where was I? Antonio Guterres said, quote, this report is clear. I don't know what that says. Clear on call to massively fast track climate efforts. Clear call by every country in every sector and on every time frame. All world needs climate action on all fronts. Everything, everywhere, all at once. And in the report, it says extreme weather caused by climate breakdown has led to the increased deaths from intensifying heat waves in all regions, millions of lives and homes destroyed, and droughts and floods, millions of people facing hunger, and increasing irreversible losses in vital ecosystems. And the other day, I wrote about the Peterborough update on its climate action. Um, and it included like some of the disasters that happened in the city of Peterborough, such as the derecho in May, which is a huge windstorm, and it left a huge power outage for several days, uh, extreme flooding, and then I added like heat waves and droughts that weren't included in that report. Um, and then people have died in Canada as a result of heat waves. Um, and then it's the last assessment. While the world still has a chance of limiting global temperature rises to 1.5 degrees above industrial levels, in case I want to Control C. Hopefully I can. I know this is a slow process, but I want to get people's names as close as possible. Um, there's no. Oh.
Kosonen.
Kosonen. Do you know
Kosonen.
Kosonen? Do you know that like internet names can internet name pronunciation can be off potentially, so that's something to be mindful of as well. So it says the article says that more than 3 billion people live in areas that are highly vulnerable to climate breakdown. And then it's saying that we have failed to reverse the 200-year trend of rising greenhouse gas emissions despite more than 30 years of warnings from the IPCC. Every year in which emissions continue to rise eats up available carbon budget and means more drastic cuts will be needed in future years. And Hu Song Lee, the chair of the IPCC, said the synthesis report underscores the urgency of taking more ambitious action and shows that if we act now, we can still secure a sustainable future for all. Richard Allen, a professor of climate change science at the University of Reading, said in this article, every bit of warming avoided due to collective action pulled from our growing, increasingly effective toolkit of options is worse news for societies and ecosystems on which we all depend. And then I highlighted some. Oh, I guess I didn't. So we still have time to act, but the window to act is running out quickly, and we have to act as soon as we can to mitigate the effects of climate change because if we pass the 1.5 degrees Celsius threshold, uh, it will be irreversible damage to from climate. Um, but that's something. Um, but if we act now, it will be better for current and future generations. Um, we should get out of this. I believe that we should get out of the mindset that climate change impacts future generations. I I'm in my 30s. I think it impact. I plan on being over 60s, and um, the if we change if we reduce emissions now as a society, we'll have better life outcomes as a result of changes that we make today. Um, and it's not for grandchildren anymore. It's for us. We all are grandchildren. But some people they only care about their grandkids. So, um, but we have to be mindful of that. It's for ourselves that we're doing this um, now, and we can't wait to take action, and that means getting involved in politics, pressuring the government to change their policies, um, and then a lot of it is the result of government decisions, and some of it is personal changes, um, as well. So being a role model for others is good. Like starting composting if there's no compost in your city, then doing a backyard compost, for example. Um, the taking the bus when you don't need to. Um, walking more often. Yeah, stuff like that. Yeah, so let's see. I don't know. I didn't highlight anything from the IPCC, and if it's thousands of pages, might not have time to go through them on the stream. So the synthesis. But I can read headline statements and summary for policymakers, the press releases. So headline statements. Let's see. So this is manageable. I might be able to talk about. Headline statements. Absorbed warning and its causes. Human activity um, through emissions of greenhouse gases have unequivocally caused global warming, and with global surface temperatures reaching 1.1 degrees Celsius above 1850 to 1900 and 2011 to 2020, global greenhouse gas emissions have continued to increase with unequal historical and ongoing contributions arising from unsustainable energy use, and land use change, life cycles, and patterns of consumption. So that's what the land use change is one of my one thing that was left off of the Peterborough update on climate action emissions. Update on greenhouse gas emissions in the city of Peterborough. Um, so observed changes and impacts, widespread and rapid changes in the atmosphere, ocean, cryosphere, and biosphere have occurred, already affecting many weather and climate extremes in every region across the globe. Adverse impacts, um, and then vulnerable communities who have contributed the least to climate change are disproportionately impacted. Current progress in adaptation and gaps and challenges. Adaptation planning and implementation has progressed across all sectors and regions with documented benefits and varying effectiveness. Despite progress, adaptation gaps exist and will continue to grow at current rates of implementation. So there needs to be more action. Hard and soft limits to adaptation have been reached in some ecosystems and regions. Um, Maladaptation is happening in some sectors and regions. I don't know what that is, but it sounds bad. Um, Current global financial flows for adaptations are insufficient and constrained implementation of adaptation options, especially in developing countries. Um, Current all countries of the global south. Um, yeah, so the next headline is current mitigation progress, gaps, and challenges. Policies and laws addressing mitigation have constantly expanded since the last report. 805. Um, and it's more likely that global warming will exceed 1.5 degrees Celsius during the 24th century and make it harder to limit warming below 2 degrees Celsius. Future climate change risks and long-term responses. Future climate change, continued greenhouse gas emissions will lead to increasing global warming, with the best estimate of reaching 1.5 degrees in the near term in considered scenarios and modeled pathways. Every increment of global warming will intensify multiple and concurrent hazards. Deep, rapid, and sustained reductions in greenhouse gas emissions would lead to a discernible slowdown in global warming within around 2 decades, and also discernible changes in atmosphere composition within a few years. For any given future warming level, many climate-related risks are higher than assessed in AO5, and projected long-term impacts are up to multiple times higher than currently observed. Risks and projected adverse impacts and related losses and damages from climate change escalate with every increment of global warming. Climatic and non-climatic risks will increasingly interact, creating compound, cascading risks that are more complex and difficult to manage. So that's why we have to act now, because if we don't act now, it'll be more difficult to make the necessary changes. Likelihood and risks of unavoidable, irreversible, or abrupt changes. Some future changes are unavoidable and are irreversible, but can be limited by deep, rapid, and sustained global greenhouse gas emissions reductions. So like we're going to face some impacts. Um, and then the likelihood of abrupt and or reversible changes increase with higher global warming levels, especially above 1.5 degrees and 2 degrees. Um, um, Adaptation options that are feasible and effective today will be constrained and less effective with increasing global warming. Um, Losses and damages will increase, and additional human and natural systems will reach adaptation limits. Maladaptation can be avoided by flexible, multi-sectoral, inclusive long-term planning and implementation of adaptation actions. Carbon budgets and net zero emissions. Limiting human-caused global warming requires net zero CO2 emissions. Cumulative carbon emissions until the time of reaching net zero CO2 emissions and the level of greenhouse emission reductions this decade largely determine whether warming can be limited to 1.5 or 2 degrees. So the idea that we can wait till 2050 to reach net zero, um, it's not, we're not acting fast enough. We have until 2030 to reach 20 net zero, and probably before 2030. Um, yeah. Mitigation pathways. Oh, I'm just wanna. Okay. I wasn't sure if there was someone in the chat. All global modeled pathways that limit warming uh, to 1.5 degrees with no limited overshoot, and those that limit warming to 2 degrees involve rapid and deep and, in most cases, immediate greenhouse gas emissions reductions in all sectors this decade. Global net zero CO2 emissions are reached for those pathway categories in the early 2050s and around the early 2070s, respectively. If warming exceeds a specified level, such as 1.5, it could gradually be reduced again by achieving and sustaining net negative global CO2 emissions. So this is going beyond net zero. And additional deployment of carbon dioxide removal. Um, okay. And some of the impacts are irreversible. Responses in the near-term. Urgency of near-term integrated climate action. Climate change is a threat to human being and planetary health. There's rapidly closing window of opportunities to secure a livable and sustainable future for all. The choices and actions implemented in this decade will have impacts now and for thousands of years. So we have to definitely act now. The benefits of near-term action, deep, rapid, and sustained mitigation and accelerated implementation of adaptation actions in this decade would reduce projected losses and damages for human and ecosystems, deliver many co-benefits, especially for air quality and health. Delayed mitigation and adaptation action would lock in high emissions infrastructure, raise risks of stranded assets and cost escalation, reduce feasibility, and increase losses and damages. Near-term actions involve high upfront investments and potentially disruptive changes that can be lessened by a range of enabling policies. Oh, I'm almost finished. Okay. Mitigating and adaptation options across systems. Rapid and far-reaching transitions across all sectors and systems are necessary to achieve deep and sustained emissions reductions and secure A livable, sustainable future for all. These system transitions involve significant upscaling of wide portfolio of mitigation and adaptation options, and feasible, effective, low-cost options for mitigation and adaptation are already available, with differences across systems and regions. And I think we should have a lot of natural systems as well, like paving over wetlands. That's not going to reduce emissions. Synergies and trade-offs with sustainable development. Sustainable development has its own problems. Sustainable is poorly defined. Um, I learned that in university. Accelerated and equitable action in mitigating and adapting to climate change impacts is critical to sustainable development. Mitigation and adaptation actions have more synergies than trade offs with sustainable development goals. Synergies and trade offs depend on context and scale of implementation. Equity and inclusion, prioritizing equity, climate justice, social justice, inclusion, and just transition processes can enable adaptation and, and ambitious mitigation actions and climate resilient development. Adaptation outcomes are enhanced by increasing support to regions and people with highest vulnerability to climatic hazards. Governments and policies. Effective climate action is enabled by political commitment, well aligned multi level governance, institutional frameworks, laws, policies, and strategies, and enhanced access to finance and technology. Um, Finance, technology, and international cooperation. Finance, technology, and international cooperation are critical enablers for accelerated climate action. If climate goals are to be achieved, both adaptation and mitigation financing would need to increase manyfold. There was significant global capital to close the global investment gaps, but there are barriers to redirect capital to climate action. Enhancing technology innovation systems is key to accelerate the widespread adaptation of technology and practices. And international cooperation is possible through different channels. Oh, it says there's a longer report coming soon, and the full volume is coming soon. Um, let's see. I don't see anyone in chat, so I won't. Um, I won't watch the presentation. Um, but I'm going to take a small break, and when I come back, I will talk about the environmental impact assessment and a blog that I found. Um, and maybe a plan to look at French, but I will talk about that. Um, So I am back. I will change the title because we're starting a new topic. Environmental impact. Mental impact assessment. Impact. Impact. Okay. So I see someone new in chat. Um, yeah, so I'll ask, whether you're looking forward to spring, if you're able to chat. And I talked about climate change, the International Governmental Panel on Climate Change report. Oh, I guess you left. Um, that's okay. So yeah, the next item is um, a blog from the University of Dalhousie. Um, but if you're listening, please feel free to add anything in the chat. I welcome people to just listen as well. Um, so I just found this blog about environmental news. Um, so I wanted to look at it, and this is remembering uh, Meinhold Dole, um, an environmental law expert, um, and it's mentioning the Impact Assessment Act. Um, and this person was a giant in the field of environmental law and policy, and how the person influenced the author of this article. Um, and then um, there was like some panels, and one of the panels was about the Kyoto Protocol, and Meinhold was there ready to defend the Kyoto Protocol, and like set an example for environmentalists, um, and he believed in the importance of reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Um, and then the Supreme Court recognized that there was a national and international collective action problem. Um, a critical voice in opposition to the federal government's 2012 ominous budget bills, which diminished federal environmental assessment legislation. And it said that, and he served on like project review panels, and he helped many environmentalists and the environmental law community find their bearings. Uh, yeah, this individual did pass away at a young age. Um, but yeah, this I just came across the environmental blog. Um, I wanted to take a look at it. Um, see what else is there. There's other articles, a human rights-based approach to plastic pollutions. Oh, a different article remembering this individual who um, who passed away. Responsible business conduct and impact assessment law. Yeah. Um, so the Impact Assessment Act will be in the Supreme Court of Canada March 21st and Wednesday, March 22nd. There's a hearing, Attorney General of Canada versus Attorney General of Alberta. Um, and you can look up the docket to see who's there. And then I found an article uh, from 2022. Supreme Court asked to rule on environmental impact legislation after Alberta ruling. And this ruling was that the Environmental Impact Assessment Act was unconstitutional. And this is a new act. Um, and it was previously known as Bill C-69, received royal assent in 2019. Um, and it allowed federal regulators to consider the effects of major construction projects like pipelines on a range of environmental social issues, including climate change. Um, in a 6-3 decision, the Supreme Court upheld a carbon tax as constitutional, and climate change and said that the climate change threat necessitates a coordinated national approach. Those like 5 judges agreed that climate change is a threat that must be addressed. 4 said that environmental concerns do not trump divisions of power. But Justice Sheila Greco wrote, "The urgency of climate change crisis calls for the cooperative protection of environmental regimes across jurisdictions." And uh, it says that the case is early 2023. I think it's the same case that they're talking about. Um, so I think it's important to look at climate change as an impact because it impacts across Canada or across jurisdictions. Let's see. Supreme Court, Supreme Court. Oh, yeah. Hopefully, I can get back to where it was, but just in case, I'll look at this. So this is like what the Canadian Environmental Law Association plan on sending to about the case. It's an appeal from the Border Court of Appeal related to the Environmental Assessment Act. I highlighted some points to talk about. This is the first time using um, highlights on all internet documents. I got an exception because some online sites don't allow it. Some do. So the appeal asks whether Section 92, 92A, and 109 of the Constitution Act of 1867 preclude Parliament from enacting legislation aimed at gathering information and making decisions about the effects of major products upon matters within federal jurisdictions. Regulation, the IAA Impact Assessment Act and regulations are constitutionally sound from a division of power perspective. Um, The pith and substance of the IAA regime is the establishment of evidence-based participatory and precautionary assessment process that anticipates and prevents adverse effects from certain major projects upon one of the more defined areas of federal jurisdiction. Um, and then it says that the majority of a border court of appeal determined that the IAA is constitutionally invalid due to alleged federal jurisdictional overreach. However, CELA, Canadian Environmental Law Association, is saying that this is misapplied due to a analytical framework, and they're saying that it's constitutional permissible for legislation enacted by one level of government to have significant practical effects upon matters otherwise within the jurisdiction, provided that such effects are incidental and collateral or secondary to the mandate. And they use Oldman, which is a previous case. So if the main part of the bill is within the jurisdiction, the purpose is within the jurisdiction, I think that's what they're arguing. And then there's a principle look before you leap approach. The designated projects listed in regulation only prescribe projects that have the greatest potential to impact one or more areas of federal interest. So that indicates that it's legal as well. And then those effects that may fall within federal jurisdiction that are looked at. And it says this the argument is that until the IAA required information on products, environmental, social, and economic, environmental health is gathered, it might not be known whether or not the federal government is impacted or those adverse effects on the federal government jurisdiction until the assessment is completed. So those interprovincial activities all within federal jurisdiction. Those argument that the Canadian Environmental Protection Act designated greenhouse gases as toxic substances. So those in-province greenhouse gases felt beyond the provincial borders provincial borders. And there was an argument of pollution havens. And then there's an argument that Alberta does not supply exclusive needs of oil. And it makes sense that that the Alberta Court of Appeal, the Supreme Court will overturn the Alberta Court of Appeal decision because the price on carbon was ruled constitutional. And then there was an argument about trade and commerce power impacts. Um, yeah, so now I can go back to where it was. Oh, it doesn't keep the highlights from previously. Okay. Yeah, so this is. Oh, maybe it's. I have to go back twice. Yeah, so this is like one of the examples. So it does keep highlights. So this is like casework upholding the Federal Impact Assessment Act. This is what CELA, Canadian Environmental Assessment, Canadian Environmental Law Association does. They advocate um, for better environmental law um, and participate in legal challenges. So the legislation establishes a broad science-based and participatory process for gathering information and making decisions about potential impacts of designated major projects, including mines, pipelines, or nuclear waste sites in Ontario, upon areas of federal jurisdiction. And CELA was granted permission to intervene in the appeal. And then, like, if you go to the CELA website, you can look at like um, different factums. Um, I showed one of the Supreme Court of Canada from when they're going to the Supreme Court of Canada later this week. Um, and then those different ones. So there's lots of pages to go through. Those blogs. Um, yeah, so something to keep an eye on going forward. Could impact law significantly, um, depending on the outcome. It could be positive or negative. Yeah, so I'm going to go to switch screens for a second. Okay. So, oh, I guess I can go to this screen. Oh, where am I? Ended up in a different wrong screen. So it's okay. Oh, yeah. So I plan on ending my stream by talking about like some future plans. Um, so I plan on talking about. My plan is to learn French, and one way to do that is to talk about things that you enjoy. Um, so we won't do that today. Um, I know that there's a new person watching. So I talked about like the spring equinox and climate change earlier on. Um, but yeah, so if you want to weigh in on what your thoughts about the spring equinox or the Environmental Assessment Act, maybe the Environmental Impact Assessment Act in the Supreme Court. Um, you're welcome, or you're welcome to just watch. But yeah, my plan going forward is to have a couple streams, um, and I'll label them. Will I learn French by looking at um, reports that I enjoy? Um, I enjoy like reading about um, environmental news, current affairs, stuff like that. So I got a book. I got a magazine, L'Actualité, um, which I plan on going through. I might use like what's it called? Um, Jamboards, and I have short stories in French, which has some tips about um, reading material. And then I might just like go through like some of the apps like Duolingo and stuff like that. Um, some of it might be like um, uh, what's it called, a study session. Um, yeah, I'll see how you respond to some of that. Those ones won't go. Will probably be on Twitch only. I want to keep my environmental soup channel about environmental and social issues. But yeah, it's something new that I'm thinking about doing, so that I learn French more effectively. Um, yeah, so I guess I'm going to end the stream. Um, I don't know how to. I haven't figured out how to. What's it called? Raid someone new. That's something that I plan on working on when I get. Um, it might be that you need an affiliate status to start doing that. Um, but eventually I'll work on that and start rating someone um, when I finish streams. Um, yeah, but yeah, and yeah, so I also got a highlighter uh, extension, so I'll be better prepared when reading some of the articles, especially like the longer news articles. And yeah, I did see an article in the Norway that I could look at for tomorrow or sometime this week about the green belt, and I could give my thoughts on that. Um, anyways, thank you for listening and enjoy the rest of your day.